I guess we'll get this mediocre pianist's take on another fantastic pianist, Rush E. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another episode of What's in a Performance, the series where I take scores, performances, videos, analyze them, break them down, and discuss what these pianists are doing in order to play the way that they do. Today is all aboard the internet meme train as we take a look at Fanchen's Rush E. Now, Rush E by Sheet Music Boss is quite literally impossible to play unless you've got like 50 fingers or something. I don't know. There was like the whole internet drama with the comment section and like someone else's Rush E performance, which has now led to Fanchen releasing his own performance of Rush E, and it is by no means mediocre. But what makes it good? What makes it impressive? That's what I hope I'll be able to talk about today as we take a look at Fanchen's video. I have the sheets on my tablet from the man himself, and so with jokes, memes, and internet ridicule aside, let's take a look at what really makes Fanchen's Rush E impressive. Let's get it. Alright, let's get on to it. But real quick, before we start, as with all my other review videos, I'm going to be pausing quite a bit. So if you haven't seen the original, you should go and watch that first before you watch this video, because we're making a lot of stops. Let's get it. Oh. I like this, I like this. Let's go Fanchen. Right. I'm waiting until we see hands. Oh, okay. Wait, that's pretty interesting. Hold on. We are stopping at the beginning as usual. First thing that I noticed is this sort of staccato motion. So there's a few ways to play staccatos, and one of them is actually to pluck the keys as though you were plucking strings. So basically what he's doing is he's using two fingers to play the third with this plucking motion to give it that sort of articulation, right? That's why his hand comes up. We talked about this for other things in other pieces before, with like playing big chords, plucking to get articulation. We're just applying that here in a smaller scale, right? And then moving forward into the next part. So you can see there, right? It's a very soft pluck, but it's still a pluck nonetheless. So it looks like he's going 4, 2, 3. We'll save the comment for this once he starts speeding up. So you can basically see how all these staccatos are kind of played with this sort of like plucking motion, except it's minimized because if he fully plucked on each one, it would take too much time, right? It would be... and he wouldn't be able to speed up the way that he wants to. So he just reduces the range of motion to just attacking the key and then coming straight back up without the full length pluck like this. There it is. So from this angle, it looks like he's going 2, 4, 3, as I said earlier. But it could be incorporating, it could be 1, 2, 3. Again, the motion blur on the hands makes it hard to tell. We're gonna frame by frame it to see what fingering Fanchen's taking. Also note how he lands. Already, even beyond just the technicality of playing repeated notes, there's already a bit of jauntiness, right? It feels almost dance-like in the way that he's playing the left hand. And the way that we get that is by articulating always the downbeat, the strong beat, right? Bum, 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 bum. It's basically much like what I've talked about before when you have notes in a voice that repeats. If we listen to what he's playing, right? We know that on all the offbeats, we get a third, right? A C and an E. But the note that changes is the one on the strong beat, right? And emphasizing that is what gives the piece a little bit of movement, the left hand a little bit of movement. And if we put the right emphasis on it, then it creates a sort of bouncy sort of movement. Same thing here. And then when we get to the octave, since it's an upbeat, it provides a sort of like syncopation to the score. We put a lot of emphasis into it, right? And then we do it again. Now let's take a look at what fingering he's using. Let's see. It looks like a 3, 2, 1, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, so he's using 4, 3, 2, 1, which makes sense because he's going in groups of 4. So what's the benefit of playing repeated notes with different fingers? Well, you can go a lot faster for one, right? Because if you were just playing with one finger, you'd have to essentially do all of that movement by just moving the wrist up and down, right? And this is a lot slower than if I even had two fingers that I was alternating between, right? And since I'm alternating between fingers, I can lift each finger that's to be played preemptively, and then give each note also more tap, right? What's also helping this for Fanchen is that he's playing on a grand piano. Grand pianos have double escapement, so when you press down a key on a grand piano, you'll feel a very slight click at the bottom of the key. And that click actually shoots the hammer up slightly. Once you pass that point, once you pass that tiny point, you are able to strike the note again on a grand piano, whereas for something like this or maybe a vertical, you're unable to do that. Be that as it may, it's still difficult, right? Like at a certain point, going fast like this is not the hard part. It's making each note distinct that becomes difficult because you can come down too fast and then you don't get articulation on a note that you're looking for, or maybe you smear two notes together, or maybe you create unnecessary articulation on a certain note, etc., etc. Actually, the technique to play this reminds me a lot of a Ravel toccata that I played back when I was in middle school, high school. It was from, I'm gonna look it up. All right, let's see. It's from
Le Tombeau de Couperin.
Interesting. So it's from that suite. It starts off much the same way, and there's a lot of repeated notes. And much like Rush E later, with the notes that repeat. Except, of course, it's much more impressionist, right? So you're adding a lot more pedal, whereas this one is a lot more articulate, and you're looking for a lot more attack on each and every single note. Now, continuing onwards, because the rest of this piece is quite similar, if we keep getting repeated notes. Again, note the left hand, right? Ooh, that's good. Wait, hold on. You hear the pedaling right there? Right, there's a slight bit of articulation just to change it up slightly. Right, he still plays it the exact same way, right? There's still the bounciness, but the pedal gives it a slightly different texture. It's demarcating the end of the phrase before it moves on to the next part, like. And we note here, right? He's now connecting the notes, right? Because you can go a lot, as I said earlier, you can go a lot faster, right? Even for something like the Moonlight Sonata, where I practice with a lot of bounce in the way that I play. Once you speed it up, you can practice, right? In order to get that sort of articulation, but once you speed up past a certain point, everything becomes a lot more legato and connected, simply by force of necessity. You hear him build towards the end of the phrase too, right? Right? This arrangement is written in such a way that you want to feel the jauntiness, you want to feel the dancing nature. Right? You want to feel the rhythm. Left hand again. Ooh, those octaves are nice. I like how he's a lot lighter here, right? It creates a sort of like an interesting contrast from the section before. Simply because you get all the repeated notes, it naturally feels a lot thicker. It feels like a more dense arrangement. But once we move into everything with just eighth notes, everything becomes lighter, everything has more time to breathe, essentially. So he takes advantage of this by even playing the octaves lighter too, right? This brings up a concept that I've talked about in the past, which is letting the arrangement do some of the work for you. Instead of thinking of dynamics as just like how loud or soft you're playing, you can also think of dynamics as markings for energy. And so while this section, yes, this is the same dynamic as the previous section, or perhaps Fanchen even drops the dynamic a little bit, simply because he plays octaves, because the melody is being doubled, there's more force, there's more energy being inserted into what he's playing. And so he can afford to drop the dynamic a little to give it a lighter feeling while maintaining the same energy, simply because of how the arrangement is written. And now we're getting thick again. Very nice. This is very clean. Oh, the pedaling. You can almost feel the heavier nature of his playing here. It's almost like he slows down by becoming heavier. That's certainly one way to do it. Feel like you're pushing through something. it creates a more organic feeling of slowing down. Because to the audience, to the ear, it feels like there's something that's causing the slowing down, as opposed to just you hitting a wall and stopping. Oh, nice. Look how efficient his movement is. Okay, let's talk about this. So when we get to... This is, again, octave spam type of stuff that we see in stuff like Hungarian Rhapsody No. 6. Essentially, in order to play that quickly of an octave, all that movement needs to come from your wrist like this. So you're just waving your wrist up and down while extending your fingers. And you go up and down like that. You have to move your fingers slightly, but a lot of that force comes from, again, your wrist and a little bit to control the dynamics from your forearm, upper arm here, right? So if one is softer, I want it louder, right? There's a little bit more movement that's coming from my forearm. When we move into the tremolo type motion, it's quite difficult, right? To play a whole chord tremolo like this repeatedly and consistently. So what you essentially have to do is you have to think of your hand as in like almost like a circle, and you're rotating up through your wrist at some point like here, right? And your fingers are tracing out like the arc of a circle. You have to position your fingers in such a way that as they come down, all of them contact the keys at the same time in order for them to all hit the bottom of the key and then have all the hammers strike at the same time too. And so you're looking for that point of rotation, that moment where you can rotate around in order to find that proper location. And also you're raising and lowering your fingers in such a way to help create that point more efficiently. So like that. And then for a different note, same thing. And then next part with the... Again, I made a whole video talking about how to practice jumps. This is precisely what you have to do. You don't have enough time to look and then like set up and then like accurately gauge where you're jumping to. You kind of, at this tempo, you have to gauge mostly off of muscle memory with the assistance of some vision, right? Since the left hand is playing the same thing over and over again. Again, the drop in dynamic, I absolutely love this. Ooh, a little bit more pedal, right? This is very staccato. You can even see it in his fingers, right? Like, the bouncing off the keys. And then a little bit of pedal. It's not a lot, right? He's not holding it, but instead, it's almost like a little bit of smidge of half pedal to give it a little bit of gloss. You hear the pedal there too? Oh, this is so good. So tasteful. You can tell it's a little bit because his hands are still moving at the same speed, right? He's still coming up at the same time. Right, you hear that little bit of pedal, right? To give that note a little bit of emphasis. In some composers, you can even like, instead of using the pedal, you can even hold the note and glide it into the next thing. But for something like this, right, again, we want to maintain a lot of that attack from the staccatos. And so how do you then change up the texture by smoothing things out slightly? Well, by adding a little bit of pedal. Again, same thing with the rotation. Ooh, it's tough. Having to move up. That's hard. Okay, so it becomes exponentially more difficult when you have to slide up the key, because the keys are easiest to press when they're out the edge, right? You can go like so fast up here. But once you move up, right, especially when you have to play black keys like this too, in order to get the right articulation, you almost have to like twist your hand in such a way so that you get a little bit more weight onto the black keys because of how hard they are to press. And the fingering becomes like less stable because one, you have a little bit less space to contact the key, but two, you can also get a little bit more tripped up by the other black keys in the area, right? As you're trying to slide up and down. So this is mad props. It's still speeding up? Okay. Ooh, nice. Overall, dang, this is really good. Let's listen to the end a little bit again. Yeah. Like, even the dun bump bump bump, like, right? I think for most people who listen to this, I think they hear the incredible technicality of the right hand movement, especially with like, you know, repeated notes like this. And it's like, yeah, this is very, very good and very, very well done. But to me, what elevates this beyond just like, oh, he's playing an exercise, is the fact that his left hand is doing so much to create this sort of like pulse and this rhythmic feel. And even his pedaling, like tiny bits of like, just to change things up or give notes a little bit of emphasis. I think that's what really makes this performance beyond mediocre, right? If I'm to use the word for the meme, it makes it excellent, in fact. It makes it really, really good. So yeah, mad props to Fanchen for playing this arrangement, because it was not easy. And yeah, for everybody out there who's wondering, I don't think I'm learning this anytime soon. Alright, and that about does it for this video. In conclusion, Fanchen's Rush E is undoubtedly technically impressive, but it's also compelling because he's got some musical aspects to it that really highlights the technicality. Hopefully even just watching and listening to him play gives you some ideas on how you can improve your own technicality and also improve your own musicality via the technicality. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so via Patreon, Buy Me Coffee, or by getting WattKeys merch. Consider joining my Discord if you'd like to talk about piano and anime with me and other people within my community. And be sure to catch my live streams on Saturdays, where I do a lot of this analysis live, except on your videos to help you with your playing. Now, of course, if you would like to hear me talk more about other people's playing, you should click right here. Or if you would like to hear me play some, you should click right here. Until next time, everybody, peace.